Publishing an adventure was one of the most exciting and terrifying things I've ever done. I was afraid it just wouldn't be good enough even by my own standards, that I'd end up with a product that even I wouldn't pay for. But I was determined to give it a try. I mean, worst case scenario, I just spent a few hours or days trying, right? I know some of you want to publish your own adventures, to really put yourself out there, and I encourage you to do so. So I'm going to break down the entire process, everything I've been through from the beginning till this. Basically, I'm going to answer all the questions I've had a few months ago. One of the things that always inspired me in the official books is the art. These wondrous frozen moments of fantasy really tied everything together. And I knew right from the start that I want art that empowers my words. The kind of art that sparks the same curiosity that I felt when I opened any adventure by Wizards of the Coast. But I was out of luck. My illustration skills barely covered stick figures, and commissioning art was out of the question. That really got to me. I couldn't figure out how to convey a story like that. I could write something, but there was no guarantee I'd find the right piece of art to go with it. So I did the only thing that made sense at the time. I worked the other way around. I scoured the internet for any pieces I could legally use and tried to assemble a story with them as my centerpieces. I looked for images that shared a theme of mystery and spirits, which is something that I wanted to explore, but I allowed myself a certain degree of freedom with the plot. First, I found this picture, which looks like a couple of fearsome spirits, a possible adversary. And then I ran into this one, a spirit in white surrounded by a snow-covered forest. These pictures became my opposing factions, and when I found this image, I knew that it had to be a location in the adventure. This one also happens to be the cover, and thus the idea of the Shadowvale was born. Turning that foundation into an interesting story took a bit more work, but I was able to buy a license for all the art pieces in the adventure for less than $50 on Shutterstock. And most importantly, it was still my own. If anyone else were to take these images and create their own adventure, they'd end up with something completely different. With that out of the way, my work became easier. I just sat down and started writing everything I needed to run the game. It felt really good to assemble the core of the adventure, and as I wrote, even more ideas came to mind. I've had all the locations, NPCs, creatures, magic items, spells. I even made battle maps with Flowscape. I wouldn't go in depth on the story development of the Shadowvale for two reasons. One, you can see it all in the adventure since it's free. And two, I've talked quite a lot about it in my other videos. When I was done writing, I felt confident that I could run this adventure to my friends. But I realized that probably no one else could. I've had many assumptions built into it, things that I just didn't write because I didn't need to. But even if the DM could make up for that, their players could easily sidetrack the whole thing and make it irrelevant. The adventure wasn't complete. I knew that I'd be able to improvise if that happened to me, but I wouldn't be there when other people run it. I had to make it work for everyone, any DM with any set of players. And I had no idea how to do it. So I went to find the people who did, or more accurately, the adventures that did. I read Lost Mine of Phandelver and the adventures and tales from the Yawning Portal. And here's what I found out. Every adventure begins with an introduction, a part wholly dedicated to get the DM up to speed. It contains a short, flavorful backstory that explains the premise, followed by a breakdown of what happens in every chapter. Finally, the adventure suggests a few plot hooks that can help the DM tie the adventure to an existing campaign. Each chapter thereafter guides the DM on running a specific part of the adventure. The division into chapters can be based on location, but it would be more accurate to say it's based on the narrative state, so we can theoretically have two different chapters happening in the same place. For example, we could have Chapter 1, the town, and Chapter 2, the town under siege. Some information from Chapter 1 might still be relevant in Chapter 2, but we don't need the details of the armies that march through the streets when we actually run the first chapter. After figuring out the structure, it took me a few days to write the missing pieces and get everything in the right format. But I finally had it. All the written material was ready. Well, almost. I still needed an editor. As a matter of fact, I think it's safe to say that every writer needs an editor. Luckily, I know a guy. My good friend Anto from Icarus Games was able to take on this job, and I'm really glad he did. While Anto fought valiantly against my English, I took some time to prepare for the next task. Layout. I've had no idea how to do that, but I knew that it had to look professional. So I did my research and figured that in order to get professional looking results, you need to work with professional tools, which makes a lot of sense, really. In my case, that meant Affinity Publisher, which is a wonderful application that I cannot recommend enough. They have a whole series of videos on their website that explains how pretty much everything works, and I was able to just watch it and follow suit. Another thing that really helped is a package from the DMs Guild specifically made for Affinity Publisher that kinda emulates the style of the classic 5th edition D&D books. I'll throw a link to it in the description. But even with all that, some things were still missing. I had all this wonderful art, but it appeared like big ugly squares on the page, and that bugged me. I also wanted my supplements to have their own style, so the backgrounds that came with the package just didn't cut it for me. So I decided I'd learn one more thing: Affinity Photo, which is very similar to Photoshop, or so I've been told. I am by no means a designer. I have no background with Photoshop or illustration. I did make some pretty maps and YouTube thumbnails, but that's about it. In fact, even after creating stuff with Photo, I am still a bit scared of the sheer amount of options this application offers. But somehow I was able to navigate through most of them and figure out the minimum required to get the results I wanted. The fact that I'm fairly stubborn also helped. I was also able to get some tips from Navot, a good friend of mine who happens to be quite the Photoshop adept. And a few smoke brushes later, I had my own unique background and blended images to go with it. It's difficult to describe how happy I was to see it all come together on my screen. My words, my design. I was ecstatic. And when I was done, I simply sat there in front of the screen, staring like an idiot. After a prolonged period of time, I woke up from my self-induced stupor and realized that I forgot something really important. I wrote so many words and worked countless hours, but I've never actually tried it. I simply couldn't call myself a pro without having my material tested, so I've called 2 of my friends and asked them to try it out. I wanted others to try the adventure without my presence because I felt it would make the experience more authentic. Fortunately, they agreed, and each of them tested the adventure with their own group. One of the groups even agreed to record their session and send it to me. And I am so happy they did because I've learned so much from listening to them play afterwards. It taught me what I need to further refine, emphasize, or tweak to create the experience that I intended. One last technical detail about publishing is to carefully read the license that you're working with. For example, my adventure uses Wizards of the Coast Open Game License, which means I was able to use some of the official D&D content in my adventure, but not all of it. For more information, check out the OGL link in the description. Funnily enough, when the Shadowvale was ready, I didn't actually publish it. I decided to give it as a gift for the community. As proud as I am of the adventure, it's still my first, and only just the beginning. In the description, you will find a link to download the adventure for free. No email, no subscription, nothing. It's 2 clicks away with maps and everything. But if you do get it, I have 2 requests. First, have fun with it. And second, check out my Patreon. My dream right now is to gain enough support so I can commission art for my content. I know it's possible, but I can't do it alone. Thank you for watching, everyone. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more of me on the internet, and remember that you are awesome, keep being awesome, and I'll see you beyond the screen.